What's up, everybody, and welcome to Exelereighted Deconstruction. As you will see, we are actually live on my own channel that I don't do anything with most of the time. All because our co-host here, Irate Prostate, got a strike for playing a video from 1998 about communism.
Yeah, and I said something about the Chinese Communist Party in the chat. It wasn't long after that, me and this person that was in the chat. So yes.
It's almost like there's probably like some like paid Chinese actor that was going through looking for YouTube videos about communism, finding any reason to strike them down.
The AI's programmed to do that shit.
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, I'm sure.
Man, they're sucking China's cock. Oh,
Red tube.
Should I said it that way?
And you just heard we also have a Tim the Hun with us as always. Yeah, like that whole strike thing. The ridiculous part about it's a video from 1998 that you were playing.
Yeah, with John Forsythe narrating.
Yeah, nobody.
Charlie of Charlie's Angels.
Nobody's gonna play that video again for money, right? It's been lost in the whims of just billions of other documentaries, and you were playing it for educational purposes. If you had to go to court, it was fair use, right? I think there's just no way. You're just gonna be like, look, I was talking about it for education, not making any money. They're gonna have literally no argument that it's infringing on their right to like monetize it in the future, because nobody's gonna watch that ever again. It's never gonna play.
Well, and why would you stop people from watching this shit? I mean, if you put it up and you credit it in the fucking the description, and you go, you can go watch it fully yourself here. Why would people complain about that? Because it gets traction on something people haven't been watching for a long fucking time.
Yeah,
you goddamn idiots, stop flagging shit like this, you fucking morons.
Our copyright laws in the United States are fucked, but that's a topic for an entirely different stream. Real quick, with the 7 people we have in the chat, I wasn't expecting nearly as many people to show up because I don't really have a channel, but we do have TK Mal, Pinoy News, Samaj, nice to see you. William Stanchivar, fuck you. Don't care that you're here. Turish, love to see you here too. Anybody else I'm missing, just say hi in the chat. I'll make sure to address you.
Hey, Turish.
What's up, hi, everybody. How you doing?
Yeah, so our topic for the day is, so last time we did a stream, we talked about postmodernism. This was 2 weeks ago, so just to kind of rehash, we talked about postmodernism and the ideas that came out of these French thinkers from the 70s and 80s. What we're getting to today is the applied turn of postmodernism. Because postmodernism itself, it didn't have any real, like, by definition, taking ideas and criticisms from postmodernism and turning it into any sort of directional way to guide society would be against postmodernism, right? It was so deconstructive that it deconstructed itself. But yeah, so postmodernism, the best way to look at it is like Timmy used to say, that was just a little kid kicking and screaming with too much, much to do about nothing.
Temper tantrums.
Yeah, just a kid having temper tantrums, and then the applied turn happened, and all of a sudden you have a bully running unchecked in the playground, knocking down anybody who stands in his way.
Yeah, that's an apt way of putting it, because they went from just complaining about shit to suddenly trying to make everybody else complain with them.
And real quick, Man Squatch, thanks for the sub.
Oh, hey, Ray.
But before we even get to the topic for today, I do want to talk about the hottest item in the news right now, which is Ruth Bader Ginsburg finally croaking.
DED.
I know, and we can't make jokes because leftists are going to freak out and we're going to get banned. And there's so many awesome jokes, and I'm not allowed to make them. And
one of the best one is she'll be voting by mail this year.
That's right.
No, realistically, like, I'm not one of those people that's gonna, like, the best way to put it, like, I didn't know her, don't really care that she's dead. Certainly would rather have a conservative justice instead of an activist judge like her on the Supreme Court. What's hilarious is what's going around with this whole idea that there's some sort of decorum between the two parties. Right? Like, it's what really happens is anytime you have a situation like this, the party that's not in power cries about, playing fair and do what's right for the American people, hoping that the other party's stupid enough to fall for it. About it.
Yeah, that's a really good way of describing it, actually. And they usually get Republicans to do it because Republicans are good-natured, and it's kind of part of the classically liberal paradigm is that you have to give people a say. You have to listen to everybody.
Yeah, I mean, not to get too political, but my theory is like during the the Clinton era through the Bush era, you basically had the Republican Party. They were kind of the same thing. Seems like the only one in this threesome that can't get laid is me. Thanks, William. Some highbrow commentary.
Wow, good job, William. It's now oddly third grade. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, anyway.
But I guess I think that there was the Republican Party, which is like your Clintons, your McCains, your Romneys, right? They all kind of they pretended to play nice sometimes because ultimately they were just neocon warmongers that wanted the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean that all certainly changed under Trump. I know we were talking before stream. Irate said, no, that whole decorum thing died during Obama, but definitely during Trump. Lindsey Graham.
Oh, it died before then.
Yeah.
It died way before then. The Democrats started shitting on it back when Clinton was in office.
Yeah, it's funny. You can look at like the impeachment, right? How that backfired on Republicans during Clinton. All the same talking points that
is fucking Watergate. They've been playing tit for tat shit,
yeah.
And that's exactly what this is. It's 5-year-olds slapping each other.
I just don't think it's gonna work. Like Lindsey Graham came out in 26, or came out. It was the Julie Gardner. Was that the name of the justice? No, you're right. He hasn't came out. He
should.
He's never gonna.
He should. But yeah, he said that. Like, look, if after 2016 you have a first-term president and an election's coming up and a seat opens up, I would expect, even if it was a Republican, that we wait until the election and let the American people do the speaking. And you can quote my words on that. All he has to do is come out and just be like, really? Are you going to hold me to that? Like this whole idea of decorum? Are you going to really make me go back to my constituents after Russiagate? After what you did with Kavanaugh? After your thinly veiled impeachment content? And then say that I need to play nice? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm totally going back on my word, and you guys gave me every reason to do it. That's all he has to say to get around that. And I think he would probably get claps from Republicans for saying that. Even though I think Lindsey Graham's full of shit, and I don't care.
You want to know the dirty little secret about why they did that to Obama during his term? It had shit to do with fair or decorum or anything else like that. It had to do with what they did to Reagan. They did that to Reagan. They tried to do it to Reagan, and this was their way of getting back at him for doing it to Reagan. It's seriously, that's how long that grudge has been going.
Yeah, I mean it's all nonsense. That's all there is to it. I mean the only reason this applies here is RBG, for as much of an activist as she was, at least kind of pretended to adhere to the Constitution.
No, she did not. She said she deferred to international law before she looked at American law.
Sure.
Literally the opposite.
She mentored Jack Dorsey. Jack Dorsey worships the ground she walks on. They're friends. They're friends.
All right. So as bad as she was, just imagine how much worse an appointment would be from a Democrat at this point. Especially because I don't trust Joe Biden to actually make the pick, right? If he ever got elected, it's going to be whatever his advisors under him, which are way more radical than he pretends to be.
It's going to be Camel Toe. Camel Toe will make the choice.
Yeah, but you have a whole group of legal scholars coming out of the Ivy League that they are actually being taught to be activists in use their legal knowledge not to adhere to the Constitution, but to subvert it. I mean, this is what we see in Portland, right? With the DA refusing to prosecute criminals for rioting.
Oh,
Just
it's
because they
not
have the
just
right
the DA
ideas.
there, Excel. It's not just the DA. That is pervasive within the entire justice
Yeah, it's
system.
the judicial too. They're the same way. I mean, we just had somebody, I forget the name of the journalist, right? But this was in, I believe it was Portland, and he was basically about to get attacked by a bunch of, BLM/Antifa types. He backed up, pulled out a gun to get him away from him, and he ran away, right? Basically everything he did was in line with what you're supposed to do to de-escalate a situation with a firearm. Like, nobody got shot. They stopped. He was safe. And to add to it, he had a history of actually being injured by these people, right? Getting attacked, getting kicked just for being around and filming. The DA went after him for illegally brandishing a firearm. The judge wouldn't let a whole bunch of evidence into the record because the judge was biased against him. And the Court of Appeals circuit there is also heavily dominated by these activist judges. And the Court of Appeals refused to hear it. So the only place left for this to go is the Supreme Court. Now imagine if one or two more RGB types were put to the Supreme Court. I have a feeling that they are not going to come down on the side of self-defense, especially because RGB was completely against the Second Amendment.
Well, like gun control advocacy has dropped in popularity drastically since the start of the Woo Flu. Like, since this whole thing started, since like April, like they've lost like something like 40% of their support overall. It's pretty intense. So putting in a liberal justice is not popular in America right now.
Yeah, and I mean, the irony behind all of this is whenever all these anti-gun liberals see what's going on, they run to the gun store.
I know.
They're like, I don't think anybody should own a gun, but do you see what's happening on the streets right now, man? I totally wouldn't by myself. I just got my concealed carry. Shh, don't tell anybody. I don't want to lose my liberal street cred.
Well, that was kind of the, but that was also something that was pointed out today when I was listening to somebody commentate on it. They're like, as popular as, when people were arguing, I think it was Bunch, when people were arguing against letting Obama appoint that judge that had to do with Reagan, that was a tit for tat little childish thing from these older Democrats and older Republicans. But it was also, the people didn't want another liberal justice in. Like, there was like a lot of petitioning and public action and stuff. And it was made very vocal to the rest, to Congress, that in the Senate specifically, that people were not going to tolerate some more liberal justices. That Kagan, or whatever her name was a bridge too far, because she had been making a bunch of really, really questionable and controversial statements, if you remember. Outside of it was Sotomayor or it was Keegan. One of the two of them was making questionable statements outside of their duties as SCOTUS. And it was upsetting somebody. I don't remember the details. It was quite a while, but there were a multitude of reasons that are not present this time, where people are actually behind Trump's picks and things like that. Like, the chick we're looking at is probably way more liked in terms of her already previous judgments than she's much more moderate and a literalist than
there's two
easier to pass.
There's two, right? So
she'll be easier to get past. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time.
Yeah, there's two women that are on the short list.
Sotomayor, you talking about Amy?
No, there's Amy Coney Barrett, and then there's I forget because this name just came up, but there's a Cuban American more moderate justice that also graduated from Columbia, just like Ginsburg did. So a lot of people think Trump will go that route because it would be harder to sell that he's picking somebody that doesn't deserve to be on the bench.
No, I disagree. I think he's going to go with the Amy chick because she's not, She's Catholic, yes, but she's also not an Ivy League graduate.
Well, and man, Squatch, what you're saying about
And she's been
Sotomayor is
vetted before.
I remember Sotomayor
She
bringing
was
up
vetted before the Kavanaugh thing. Remember
Mhm.
yeah, addressing man Squatch. The whole idea that Sotomayor actually brought up her identity as part of the reason she would be qualified to be on the court. I mean, that plays right into this postmodern social justice theory where the identity group that you're a part of means more than you as an individual
And
or
she
your
knew
individual
that would
ideas.
resonate with academia, right?
Yep.
See, I think Trump will go for outside of the Ivy League. I think he'll go for the Amy Cottrell or Cantrell or whatever her name was. Carell. I can't remember her name now.
Yeah, technically, you don't have to be a lawyer or even a judge to be on the Supreme Court.
That's true.
Well, everybody was saying Ted Cruz. Just tap Ted Cruz, and Ted's like, I don't know.
Man, Dershowitz said he is the most intelligent fucking student he's ever taught.
Yeah, I mean,
constitutional law.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dershowitz is under too much fire due to his Epstein connections. But it would be interesting if Trump went like super radical and asked somebody like Jonathan Turley, the lifelong Democrat that actually, came out and, he basically scathed the House of Representatives for thinking that anything Trump did that the evidence rose anywhere close to impeachment. It would be pretty hilarious to see him nominate somebody like that. We're like, I'm nominating a Democrat. What are you talking about?
Well, I don't think it'll matter. I think it's going to be more literalists because that's who he's been tapping the whole time has been literalists. So I think he's just going to follow suit with another female literalist.
Kavanaugh's not a literalist. Gorsuch was. Which, I mean, Gorsuch got a lot of... And this is actually how it should be. I forget what was the ruling that he got a lot of crap on? Was it the abortion one that he refused to hear?
Well, it wasn't a well-built case. It was a terribly built case.
Like
it was not worth hearing.
Yeah, he did it. Yeah, like I said, he did it based on, it was more of like a matter of like precedent and procedure. But a lot of conservatives were like, you had a chance to do something and be activist judges as conservatives and you didn't do it. And I was like, actually, that's what you're supposed to get, right? A good Supreme Court justice is not going to fall in line.
Be an activist.
Like, you shouldn't be able to predict how they're going to come on a decision based on their party. I know the reality is that you can, but that should not be the case.
Well, unfortunately, these days, that's all we have. We're going to have to change it over time. I was hoping they would do the whole wait till after the election, but then I realized that no, it's not going to work that way. We can't do that this way right now because of the whole debacle with the mail-in voting. So I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans go batshit, and you're going to see a lot of Democrats go bigger batshit.
Tell me this, all right? So he appoints Catholic woman, okay, who's definitely anti-abortion. She's got 10 kids, I think 8 or 10 kids, something like that.
She's got a bunch, yeah.
Okay, so who benefits more? Does Trump benefit more because of the Catholicism? Because there's a shitload of Catholics in this fucking country that vote Democrat. Okay, and then B, you've got your whammon voters that voted for Trump. You see what I'm saying? Who's going to benefit? Who's going to go to the other side? I guess.
Well, okay. There's a large demographic that's being ignored here, and that's the Latino community, who is heavily Catholic.
That's Catholic. Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
They're all very pro-life, in my experience.
Yes.
So even in California, they're stringently pro-life. Even if the church isn't so pro-life, they are very pro-life, and they're very pro-nuclear family. I think if they put her on there with her multitude of kids and the firebrand that she is, I think she's an excellent replacement for RBG, in the sense that she's as big a female personality and firebrand within law.
Right.
Yeah.
She's not a revolutionary or an activist or anything, but she is most certainly unafraid of citing the Constitution for shit.
Let's be
So-
real honest. She's a female, but she's not politically female, so she doesn't count as a woman according to the left right now.
Oh God,
Right,
don't
yeah,
remind
it's
me.
like white patriarchy, of course. Of course.
Of course.
She suffers from false consciousness.
No!
Those are
Internalized misogyny.
She talks from false speak.
yeah. That was actually my way of trying to do a really bad pivot into the show subject. I do want to say though, like speaking of that, like the biggest Latin vote person I know, that's for Trump is Let's Be Frank, and he's up to like 100,000 something subs. He did air part 1 of my interview. He hasn't gotten around to part 2 and 3. I did send him a message saying that the only thing that was lacking, which I hope you can do maybe like a pre-recorded voiceover, letting people know who they're talking to. Because in the comments, multiple people said, like, so I have a friend here that's going to talk to about it this day or today. And he never introduced me.
Oh shit.
So nobody knew my channel or your channel or who I was. They just knew that I was talking to Frank about it. So Frank said he would. It's an easy oversight because we did a whole 45 minutes and he had to edit it down. He probably didn't realize that he edited out some fairly important information.
Oops. It happens. Details when you're busy. Doesn't he have like a job and a life too on top of it? Like,
no, he's a full-time YouTuber now.
oh, okay.
Let's Be Frank is up to 100,000 subscribers.
And he has, good job, man.
The way he did it is he is a true Donald Trump, like, hoorah person, right? So he's totally pro MAGA, but he also keeps his channel clean. He keeps his comments clean. Like, he does everything by the book. There is almost no way around it, right? Like, he won't have you on your show if you cuss too much. He doesn't even want to risk it. So
yeah, I get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how his channel grew, right? So he covers all the hot typical topics, like when every time Kelly McEnany owns the press, he makes a little video about it. So in that sense, it's kind of cookie cutter, but he's a good guy. He makes good content. So certainly, if you like just political news and want to hear from somebody, check out Let's Be Frank.
Yeah, he's actually really good for accurate information. He really does try to give you all the actual.
Yeah, he's a good guy. Yeah, he reached. I mean, that's why he reached out to me too. Is Trump talked about critical race theory. He didn't really know much about it, so he just reached out to me and asked questions.
Hey, Sin, you might not like Let's Be Frank because he's a Christian, and
yeah, he does prayer meetings and stuff. but no, his political commentary is completely removed from that.
Man, I don't know why that is a turn off to people. What people believe in their own fucking. It's just as private as who they fuck. You know what I'm saying?
No, Sinrise wouldn't care.
I'm saying no. I'm saying if you're a modern human being that says that claims to be above all this shit,
no,
be above it, right?
Yeah, no, Sinrise wouldn't care the same way Frank doesn't care that I'm an atheist, because when it comes to issues,
I'm not dissing on Sinrise. I'm just saying.
Oh no, I wasn't even dissing on Sin. I was just saying Sin might not find the stuff because he gets kind of personally turned off by it as a person. I just know his taste because he's my bud.
The time of anti-theism is over, right? We're not there. Like, it's not. We don't have I mean, the way I even explained it to Frank is conservatives that wanted to have some sort of role of religion in government have just lost so many times that they've given up. It's not even a big issue for them. They're not sitting there trying to bring prayer back into public schools, right? In fact, most of them are just like, I'm actually just sick of public schools and would prefer that there's not prayer in public school because I'm afraid of what they would have the kids praying about.
Yeah.
It's changed that much where the landscape is atheists like me that have libertarian bends have way more in common with conservatives like Frank than I do with anybody on the left. So
yeah.
And part of it is because the left has adopted their own new religion, which we call social justice.
That's
Moral
baggage.
More figgage, yes. Figgity, figgity, fig, fig. Fuck these people.
Well, I mean, so and that's social justice is like it's literally the how theory mutated from the postmodernists that had no aim, completely untenable, unprescriptive ideology that just led to a death spiral where it eventually deconstructed itself out of relevance. Right? It was a lot of playful irony of people.
It was complaining.
Yeah,
it was venting, and it was like
little
getting
kid
over losing.
kicking and screaming with much to do about nothing. That was the original postmodernism. But
Yes.
the turn came where we now have applied postmodernism. It has an aim, and we call it social justice. And I just remind people, social justice is not specific to these applied postmodernists. It's been talked about well before. There was a liberal application of social justice, but its aim was to eliminate barriers based on characteristics like sex and race, your sexual orientation, right? It was universal application of human rights. Theory, on the other hand, aims to tackle the intangible, which is these crazy ideas of different ideas of knowledge, like lived experience having priority over any kind of scientific or objective truth.
Okay.
Well, and I kind of have my own thought on this. I think the biggest reason a lot of people, especially that had liberal tendencies, turn to this new postmodern framework is that as we, liberal society corrected the wrongs of the past by, like I said, eliminating things like Jim Crow, passing the Civil Rights Act, like truly making it so people are equal under the law. And also, even from a personal standpoint, we promoted common humanity politics, which is, I mean, everybody likes to cite Martin Luther King, but that was the goal. That's how I was raised, was to treat everybody as an individual and judge them on their own merits.
Yeah.
Right? Not part of their group. And I think part of the reason they're adopting this new approach, which is a complete 180, it's trying to, like, all of a sudden we're ascribing massive importance to these different identity groups. In fact, we need to give precedent to these identity groups over whatever the majority identity group is, which is white people. Anytime that they have something to say, otherwise we're never going to be able to solve this injustice. I think it's because most of the evidence we have right now contradicts what theory is saying. Right? Like this whole idea that police are out to hunt down black men. It's just not true. What was it last year? You had something like 3.7 million interactions of police officers with black men, right?
Yeah.
13 unarmed people got shot. Some armed people got shot, right? Some of them were justified. Most of them would be considered justified. Now, there's certainly an argument about how much leeway we should give to police, right? As to when they're allowed to use lethal force and when they shouldn't. That's a fine conversation, but social justice doesn't care about it, right? Their answer is that there's a systemic problem with the police hunting down black people for no reason. That's why they adopted this idea that people have implicit bias or subconscious bias. So even if you don't know it, even if you're not trying to be racist, you're constantly acting and making decisions in a way that is to uphold your status as the dominant group and keep your power. Same thing for cause of wealth gaps. Ibram Kendi said in no uncertain terms that anytime you see some sort of disparity in society, and I have to caveat because he really just means negative disparities, right? If one group is doing worse than another, that is evidence of racism. That's objectively false. We know this. Like any economist worth his salt can look into it and be like, well, actually, there's more. There's more going in here, and it turns out, no matter how you separate groups, you're always going to find disparity. That's the norm.
Well, yeah, you can't have that. What they're demanding doesn't exist. Like, that's part of the big problem that we have is these people are demanding that we make their daydream become a reality when their daydream isn't physically possible. I can't make a lightsaber. You can't physically bend light like that. No, we can't make your lightsaber. This is the same thing. It's a lightsaber. Light doesn't bend that way.
Yeah, and Ryan points out we have a huge media problem, and I'm sure what he's referring to is specifically with the police shootings, and even for some of these other issues like wealth gaps. But with police shootings specifically, it's all a matter of selective coverage. If they covered every single time a person was shot by police exactly the same, all of a sudden people would start to realize, like, okay, we might have a policing problem, but it's not a racial bias problem.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that don't know how to act when they're told no, is what we have. Like, straight up, that's what we have. We have a bunch of individuals that don't know how to handle being told no and facing the consequences of their actions.
Youngest
We have a lot of them. Yeah, actually, you have a lot of people that never learned that if you do dumb shit, somebody's going to hit you for it, and you're going to have to pay for that consequence in some sense. And we have a whole lot of people that haven't learned that.
Pop that hand upside their head.
Yeah.
Say, no, goddammit.
Man Squatch added me to let me know, or to say, consider how they frame it. They see people as part of a group, not as a person. They judge people in relation to their idealized concept of that group, which is mostly true, and we've talked about that several times before.
Yeah, the God of the gaps.
Yeah, and we also have the two, the four themes and the two rules of postmodernism that are very pervasive, and one of them is loss of the individual, and to them, individuals are really just the sum of their intersecting identity groups, right? So that's where this hierarchy of oppression comes from,
right?
But it really is how they view the world and how they view people.
And it's really inaccurate because it takes away a lot of the uniqueness and individuality that makes humanity interesting.
It's like a reverse Soviet system, right? It's like,
yeah,
the least you can contribute to society makes you the most important, right? It's like a upside down meritocracy.
It is. It's an inversion of meritocracy.
Yeah, I mean, they
makes no fucking sense whatsoever.
They borrow from Marxism the idea of meritocracy, but they do it at this cultural level, which is where the cultural relativism comes from.
And it can all suck my. All right, anyway.
Yeah. It's awful shit. And when you're somebody like me, that you're 3 different types of Native American and your fucking children are 4 different types of fucking Native American, and you got people calling you a goddamn white supremacist, you want to know what the fuck they're fucking talking about. Please, dude, tell me, how the fuck am I a white supremacist when I seem to be doing nothing but fucking diluting the white race? Fuck you.
Well, and I like the answer to that is they see the difference between somebody who is, and this is something that I have this in my notes, but when Crenshaw, Kimberly Crenshaw, which is the person that came up with this whole idea of intersectionality, she actually
born, man.
Well, she actually said that there's a difference between happening to be black and being politically black. Right? So that's what they would say to you.
I'm going to go back in time and whisper in her mom's ear. I'm going to say, "Coat hanger."
Right? Because you know what the other half of this problem is, Excel and Irate? You know what happens when I start teaching my kids about their lineage and the historical significance or whatever of their heritage?
Yeah.
I'm accused of cultural appropriation. Okay?
Yeah, it's... I can only imagine telling people like kind of like a more honest telling of the situation.
Well, think about it. All right, so if you incorporate this logic, all right, you start looking at yourself as being more than highly flawed. You start to abhor yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And so I see, because I've talked to a lot of people that are furries, and self-loathing seems to be at the middle of it. And if you think about it, the whole trans thing, it's like, what way to like fit in with the system is to like unwhite male yourself.
No, And I refuse to do that. I refuse to let one group of people be like, it's so wrong because that's discrimination. That's injustice. That's real fucking injustice, man. Yeah. Why? Oh, it makes me so angry. I really hate feminism, y'all. I really do. And I will get on some stupid diatribe.
What? Am I making sense with that?
You're making total sense.
Okay, good. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm trying to figure out how to say shit, you know?
I want to finish up like with the point I was trying to make about I think the reason people gravitate to this is because any objective evidence kind of contradicts what they're trying to say about, you know, how America is a racist country. Like I really do think it's because people have liberal sensitivities and they see these disparities still happening and they don't like the idea that the solution to it is way more complicated than just fixing something that is on like facially not complicated, which is racism.
You know what we say in AA about projection? If you spot it, you got it. You know? And
yeah.
I think a lot of the stuff that people are accusing you of and like, you know, and want to really just harp on is what they're internally guilty of.
Well, yeah, and that's we talked about.
You know, she is a racist. For fuck's sake, if you listen to her for 5 minutes, you realize that bitch is a real racist.
She says it. She says she's an avowed racist. She says it all throughout her book.
Yeah, and then she projects that onto everybody else, saying that like, but I don't think it's just me. I think I have been culturally indoctrinated, just like every other white person, to think this way.
Fuck you.
And I was like, no, you're just a bourgeois liberal that.
Yeah, no, fuck you, bitch.
Like, you didn't grow up in the real world. You didn't live in mixed communities. You never lived in the hood like I have. Like, it's not.
Stupid cunt.
Yeah, I think she's an avowed racist. And anybody that it's like that black guy with the Ibram guy.
Ibram Kendi.
Yeah, he's got the fancy dreadlocks in all his pictures. Fuck him. In his neck. Fuck him. He's a fucking racist too. Anybody who tells you that people do things based on the color of their skin is a fucking racist. An avowed fucking racist, and you need to just tell them to suck a fucking dick because those people are the ones that are causing the problem.
And it's amazing.
Don't give them the charity you would somebody who doesn't understand what's going on.
Like being an awful human being. Like, stop.
It's amazing. It's amazing how people like Ibram manipulate language, which is, I mean, this actually comes straight out of postmodernism, except they're turning it upside down. Like, postmodernism said that the way language is used is basically it enforces the power structures of the group that has power. Like, language itself is a form of power knowledge. But rather than just saying, like, oh, we should fix language to not be about power knowledge, they agree it is, but they want to take it over so that they have the power. And so Ibram Kendi does these slights where, well, whether discrimination is right or wrong depends on whether such discrimination leads to anti-racism or racism, which he sees no juxtaposition between the two. So he's just set it up. So we need to allow for discrimination, but only so long as it promotes what we've defined as these marginalized groups and gives them an advantage to balance out the inequality caused by this pervasive boogeyman of systemic racism.
Well, we have the boogeyman, but nobody knows what the boogeyman is because they instead of naming it, they've just decided that a class of people are the boogeyman without any justification for it. And it's fucking maddening.
No, they use it as an axiom. Right? So this, like I said, they say things that objectively, like, we can prove is not true. Like, anytime you see a disparity, it's proof of racism. But they use that as an axiom. And anytime you throw facts at them, they would call that epistemic violence because it goes against the lived experience of the people that are in this group. And by the way, the people in this group don't necessarily have to be all the people that share the same skin color, not all of them, right? The ones that dissent from what Ibram Kendi believes. Once again, it goes back to the whole false consciousness thing that we've talked about several times on this stream, where these people, they don't understand, like, they're acting against their own interest, and they're not really part of that identity group because they're not acting in a way that somebody in that identity group should act.
Well, they've decided that the identity group. Well, the problem is
Are
that
you
the
seeing
identity
the circular
groups,
logic here?
well, it's
That's
also
really what
that
I'm trying to point out.
it's very arbitrary as well as circular. Okay, so it's very frustrating because the identity groups are rather arbitrary and punitive because it's like, oh, it's they say skin color, but then people don't act based on skin color. And when people say, hey, I don't act based on my skin color, I act based on what I fucking need. And they end up being told that they aren't actually their skin color because it's the idea they've come up with for what that skin color is supposed to do is very arbitrary. It doesn't actually have much basis in reality outside of like political black voting history. Other than that, most of the stereotypes they use to create these identities are woefully inaccurate.
Yeah,
they're very arbitrary and punitive.
Yeah, and Sinrise post in chat, which is related. Could it be culture is a little more nebulous than a lot of people seem to think? I think that question was rhetorical, but unfortunately, whenever you're speaking with people that are subscribers of critical race theory, no, they don't understand that. Like, it's absolutely true. Like, culture, gaming has its own culture. I've brought this up a million times, and I guarantee you, if you broke up society between people that play video games 30 hours a week against people that play video games less than 10 hours a week, you will find staunch disparities in other walks of life.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something completely racial neutral.
Well, because there's just such a drastic, vast choice of games. Like,
yeah, and once you are in a gaming culture and you're spending that much time involved in games, there's things within gaming communities that are actually kind of part of its culture. Like, there's memes and ways of talking that people from the outside wouldn't even understand. Like, you use language in a different way, and it completely baffles anybody from the outside that looks it up.
Get better, scrub! Sorry.
Yeah.
That's actually how we communicate with our kids in our house because gaming culture is that pervasive in our home.
Yeah, so, like a reply to somebody that, I don't know, like a reply to somebody in a video game of kill yourself. That sounds like a very brutal thing to say to somebody. But in gaming community, like, it's well understood what we mean. We're just like, I'm just sick of you. Like, just get out of here, right? Like,
no more respawn for you, dude. Go away.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, they all have different cultures. Growing up in Central California, I can tell you that, you know, Vata and Güero and Ese and all that stuff, it'll get you punched in other parts of the country, but you could talk to each other like that just fine in Central California without anybody being offended because that's just kind of how it goes there. And I'm sure that works in other parts of the country the same way. And these identity politics things remove that concept of culture and human interaction the way that we're used to using it. And it's really, it's starting to have a problem.
Well, and so this actually gets me to the next point on my list because the original postmodernists looked at like identity group, like these superficial groups like race as social constructs, but they used it as a social construct like it was passe, it's not real, it's not really significant. These applied postmodernists, they've reconstructed it and they kind of agree that race is a social construct, but they also think it has some sort of objective significance and that these identities are objectively real. So, I mean, that's another difference, like I said, between the kid kicking and screaming with much ado about nothing to the bully running unchecked on the playground.
And the problem is it's the same child.
Yeah, it's the same child, he just grew up. Like, that's what we're talking about. Like, it took this applied turn, right? You get this kid kicking and screaming, and like the next step is this bully running on the playground. And I really think that's a great analogy that maybe we should forward to Helen Pluckrose and James Lindsay, who
Yeah, I think
once
so.
again, those are like our main sources for this topic, because I think they're they are the biggest critics that actually understand the literature that exists right now, and they're liberals. That's one thing. That's one thing I had to point out to Frank that I hope he gets to on the next stream, because this is not a right versus left issue. It really isn't.
No, this is an authoritarian versus anti-authoritarian issue, and that is an idea that transcends party.
Yeah, like this isn't about whether or not, like, in a liberal society we should treat healthcare as a public good, which would be a left versus right issue. This is about the liberal ideas of objectivism and standards for how we come to truth, like reason, the application of reason as a way to know things is superior to all other ideas that have ever existed, right? It's the idea the scientific method means something and should be used, and that whenever we make claims about reality, that we should adhere to it as strongly as possible, even in the social sciences.
Yes, especially in the social sciences.
Like this whole postmodern critical theory nonsense explicitly rejects all of that.
I thought so. I think it also doesn't it also reject the idea that you can measure experience? Like, that's the critical conscious thing, is you can't measure your own experiences, right? It's
no, like, yeah, like
you can only feel them.
Yeah, exactly. It's this whole idea that, like, only people within this identity group could possibly speak to know about what it's like to be in that identity group. There's no other way anybody from the outside could possibly have any knowledge, right?
So anthropology doesn't exist. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Sociology, anthropology.
Yeah, sociology properly done, yes. I mean, sociology and even economics, they've always been kind of abysmal sciences because it's about people, and people are complicated.
You know, there's deaf, in the deaf community, there are anti-cochlear implant people.
Yes, there are. They're also like a snobby subset that is really
you
fucking obnoxious.
Bags, man, Jesus Christ.
Well, that actually all comes from theory, which is it's extension of like ableism. The idea that you would cure something like deafness would be like genociding an entire identity group. I'm not joking. This is not
a lie.
This is actually something that they come up with, which is why these people are against it.
That's pathetic, isn't it, man? But it's funny.
Are you serious? Really? Okay.
That's
okay,
crazy.
But okay.
Oh my God.
So
by the way, I think I said this before the stream, but not to the stream. I don't usually do this, but I am going to shill my Streamlabs. I don't expect much, but I don't care about the money. Our friend Mad Dodge, he actually lost his house in the Portland fires, so everything that goes into my PayPal, I'm gonna send over to him.
Yeah, throw that dude some cash, man.
I will grab
I would say if you don't want to Streamlabs me to get your comment highlighted and you just want to help Mad Dodge out,
I got $20.
Tim is gonna grab the link.
I just got to go to my history and pull it up, because every time I try to search for it in my bar, it doesn't work. So
history always catches up with us.
Or what?
Our history. I'm kidding.
I know, right, dude? Fuck, man. No idea.
While you're looking for that, I have a quote directly from the book that I think people should sit on that really kind of encompasses everything we talked about, is theoretical approaches, which I want to remind people that when we say theory, we mean it with a capital T, and we're talking about all the critical theories. They've formed a left-wing moral community rather than a purely academic one. It's a organ more interested in advocating a particular ought than attempting to detach itself and make an assessment of what is. which is what we usually do in the social sciences. What's what we do in the sciences, right? It's trying to remove itself from pushing for a particular ought and just to come to a conclusion about what is. So the best way to say is rather than saying, oh, we should be fighting against, or we should be fighting for defunding the police, a proper way of doing things would to be assess the actual actions of the police using some sort of objective standard, and then write about the is.
Yes.
So this way of thinking is something that we would normally associate with religion rather than academia.
Well, that's the only way you can have the theory work, though. That's why you have to explain the origins of the theory, because with critical theory, there's nothing to base it upon that's measurable that you can look back to time and again. See, if you're, it has no concrete, so you have to go that way. I don't know how else to describe it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah, it's
just by nature of what it is. It has to be. I mean, once they decided to apply it, it became a purely moral crusade.
Yes.
Not a crusade about actually uncovering new knowledge.
Yeah, it stopped being about that. It started being about proving, just making people do what you wanted.
Well, it's funny, like, and I just say that, which is why they redefined what knowledge means in the first place. Right? That's where the radical skepticism that we talked about in the postmodernist stream, that's where it comes into play, because they are so radically skeptical that they're skeptical of the good ways of knowing that have been tried and true for at least the last 4 centuries. And
now,
yes, has it been perfect? No, but it's gotten better. It's the same way of knowing that got people to the goddamn moon. Okay. Using less computing power than what's in my pocket right now, which is a cell phone.
The human brain.
But I don't know, all right. Your brain has computing power still, because I kind of wonder about mine, and like I know I'm younger than you.
It's still a complex computing mechanism, even if it's not
stuck playing solitaire.
Even if it's been fried from years of lots of fun, sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Indeed. Smooth by the grace of fuck.
Maybe powered by a hamster, but goddamn, does that hamster?
All right. If I put a link in, I think it was in Creamstream cheat sheet, which is the third one up, to a link to Undoom's this tweet he got.
I think you put it in the chat.
Did I put it? Yeah, I might have put it in the chat. But
is it your general live stream chat?
Yeah, the live stream.
I'll see it.
Yeah, it says all right. So no, they're talking about communism. No, that was communism. Mao was trying to industrialize farming faster by making the peasants create steel. Remember, before the starvations happened, that all the fucking time yet, no one talks about it. People that died under the lords is never discussed. Mao, after the Great Starvation, made sure there wouldn't be a single person who died of starvation after that. Let that sink in. And he was successful in doing so. Under Mao, Chinese conditions of living never decreased; they only increased, and the farms that were once ruled by lords became owned by peasants' cooperatives. And the only problem was their isolation from world trade, even though they had a robust infrastructure through the rapid industrialization. Mao's decentralization of power was important for the prosperity of China, though the Communist Party made a decision to liberate the industries to get investors. But also now they had a currency for which to value the market in the market, and making it much easier to develop further. So, comments, questions?
I'm trying to understand.
You derailed
Trying
me.
to say that nobody starved after Mao took over?
Yeah.
Okay, what?
Yeah.
Okay,
So,
okay. Like you derailed me, but I think you were just trying to point out an absurdity.
No, I to be honest, it just like I just read it, and my brain it was just going, "Are you kidding?"
Okay, I was gonna say, like, if you were trying to make a connection to about what I just said,
I had to process this.
I still can't.
But what this guy's saying here is that what this guy said here is completely. Once again, it's objectively false.
Horseshit is what it is. But you
have to do. If you do enough mental gymnastics, I'm sure you can excuse that comment, but it would take a ton.
All right, so you got 5,000 bushels of wheat for 5,000 people, all right, and their families. So what you do is you kill half of them. Now you got twice as much food.
That's like just what I was about to think. It was just like, well, yeah, like once you do a bunch of slave labor to build a bunch of stuff and then starve half the population, then like the leftover stock, it looks pretty good for the people that lived, right?
More for me.
That's just shit. My God.
Yeah, I mean, even the idea of prosperity for China is that China's far from prosperous for most of its citizens.
Yeah, this person is a fucking obvious retard, man, and I pray.
No, they're an operative. That's an actual Chinese person that's allowed to have Twitter.
Oh, I see what you're saying. One of them, glow in the dark chink.
Yeah, it's one of those
in the armor.
on Minecraft.
Minecraft, yes.
just to cover all our bases there.
Did you see somebody came in? Goofy Koromaru came in and said, "Written like a true PhD in historical revisionism."
Yeah.
Yeah. So some other people really don't agree, guys. They really don't fucking agree. So.
Yeah, we already went over the 1619 project, but if you want a modern day American version of historical revisionism, read that. Even liberal scholars do not agree.
No, what's the name of that movie with Cuba Gooding Jr. and he's the slave on the ship in the Amistad? Amistad?
Yeah,
is that the name of it? I think that's the name of the movie. If you watch that movie, you will know what Project 1619 is. Like, no shit.
What movie?
Amistad, I think it's called. I think it has Cuba Gooding Jr. You know what I'm talking?
Yeah, okay. That's an older film, yeah.
Project 1619 is the movie Amistad written into a curriculum for kids. Changed my mind.
I've never seen it, so I can't. Real quick, what's up, Uzuku, aka Miss Prostate?
Uzuku.
Hi,
hey woman. Boo boo.
Boo boo.
My tasty treat.
Hey boo boo.
Also, I think I covered it all, but I've said it before. People have complained that even when we do the stream on iRate's channel, that we don't address the chat enough. If you at me or at somebody that's in the stream, that'll help because we get that nice orange highlight. Because sometimes it's hard to distinguish between conversations between the people in the stream and people that actually want us to respond to a topic.
Yeah, and if you have something you want us to address,
even with only 11 viewers, like we go off on these tangents for a little bit, and we have to take a break and go back and look at the chat, and sometimes it's not easy to figure out what needs to be addressed and what doesn't.
Hi, my name is ADHD, and let's go ride a bike.
Exactly.
Sorry, guys.
That music's good.
Okay. I can't hear the music because I have really bad ears, and if I try to listen to music in our conversation, I'll forget what we're saying.
All right. Hey, actually, I have a good one for the next one. So this was from Bell Hooks, which is a feminist scholar that borrowed from postmodernism, but had a complaint against postmodernism that I find to be hilarious. Well, it turns out white men came up with postmodernism and didn't give enough room for black identity politics to be included.
Oh,
which
shut up!
I see to be required to fight white supremacy. That's a summation, but that's basically like, she was like, yeah, you guys had some good ideas, but you were white men that didn't understand the importance of black identity.
But I'm totally not a racist!
Yeah.
Fuck, what?
I just thought that was funny, because, I mean, that's part of the postmodernist turn. That's where, like, I already brought up with Kimberly Crenshaw, where she pointed out there's a difference between being black, politically black, and just happening to have black skin, right? So she basically came up with a way to fit Uncle Tom's into her framework. I do want to give her some credit. So part of what Crenshaw was working on was, and I'm only giving her credit to the extent where discrimination law is a real thing in the United States, and there were times where it didn't adequately address the fact that there's multiple categories that classify for discrimination, and that the law wasn't very well tailored to deal with people that might fit multiple categories.
Okay,
right? Because that's kind of where intersectionality came from, was from feminist legal theory or critical legal theory.
What kind of dumb bitch thinks some Frenchmen are going to be able to understand the American black experience in Jim Crow law?
Well, no, I said, Crenshaw borrowed from it, but Crenshaw was actually a direct descendant of Derek Bell, who was way closer to Marx than the postmodernist.
Well, you know, anything to be destructive. Sorry, I have some negative opinions on Bell. Anyway, just thought it was kind of repugnantly stupid to expect a bunch of Frenchmen to know about American black civil rights issues and incorporate it into something that was written a full, 15 years before it became a big deal in America. That seems really fucking stupid. But kind of typical of the movement as we see it these days.
Real quick, just because we were talking about China, Byron King, aka Full Metal Joker, he asked me to check my DMs. He has a YouTuber that fled China and now talks about how things are there. I will, and I always do whenever you send me messages. You'll just notice I don't always get back to you immediately, but when I get a chance to check it out, I will watch it. I can only imagine that people that actually have fled China, they understand that it's not a great place to live. I'm actually, there was, for a short time on Let's Be Frank's channel, there was a guy that he had on there that was an expat living in, I think, like Thailand or Taiwan or something like that. But he was constantly trying to talk about how, the new China is great and how awesome it was. At this point, I'm convinced that he is a paid shill.
Oh, for the Chinese?
Yeah, especially after COVID.
Well, when all else fails, sell your soul.
Like, on that note, Frank kicked him out of all his groups and stopped having him on his stream. He's just like, I'm done with you. All your opinions on China, just, I don't care how many things you can read or cite. Like, I don't believe you.
You are number 4!
Yeah, it turns out that anybody that's smart enough and willing to do the research can argue with dum-dums like us and have us have no argument back, right?
Yeah.
Just make a whole bunch of citations and stuff on a topic we don't know that much about. Like, we have some facial knowledge that we believe is true.
All right, so you can make the basic argument, too, that if you really gave a shit about the environment, you'd make fucking India and China pony the fuck up and do their part.
Especially China.
Hello. Exactly.
Especially China, because at least India tries to fucking mitigate some shit, dude.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just...
I don't want to hear shit about cow farts.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. When you have... Oh, God, I'm not even going to get started on that. Irate, Yeah, you would not believe that I have a mouthful of shit and I'm trying to figure out how to record it and upload it somewhere because I just watched the Oregon fires get so badly handled. I don't even know how to respond. I'm so frustrated with what I've heard.
Wow.
So, because I grew up around firefighters. Did you know they took all the firefighters off the fire line and they made them go knock on doors to evacuate people?
You would think that there would be other people you could tap for that.
That's usually what you fucking do. That's what cops are for. That's what civil patrol is for. You don't pull your firefighters off the line to knock on doors. I've never heard of that.
Did you see that meeting when they were talking about it was like a Skype meeting with the members of what is it, Clackamas?
The Clackamas County what?
Yeah.
No, I missed this.
Yeah, and they're talking about Antifa being involved and shit, and they're like, well, I don't know if we want to go with that, and of course it got leaked out. I've got it, but it was just, it took them forever to decide, and I think what they did was they decided to table it until they could get in touch with the governor. It was about they were wanting to. So some of the people were wanting to mobilize the National Guard to help with the fire, right?
But it should have been done right away, and it wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. And they finally agreed on it. That's what that is. So.
Fuck.
Well, did you see that? Excel?
No. Oh.
I did not.
Yeah, it's funny how that came.
Yeah, I didn't.
Pretty
I
fast.
didn't see that. That was interestingly ignored and not mentioned.
By the way, what's up, Joshua Dimmers? Nice to see you.
Oh, hello,
Hey, Josh,
Joshua.
How you doing, man?
He has been a fan of this very specific show for a while, so I'm definitely glad to see him figuring out how to get to my Dum Dum channel to listen to us Dum Dums talk about things that are way too smart for us to talk about.
I think it's wrong to say that. Because the people that came up with it apparently aren't that smart.
Well, they spent a lot of time on it, so
they're grifters.
We'll
This shit isn't highbrow, people.
All right, I'm gonna do a lightning round where I'm gonna remind people, and I'm gonna quote directly from the James Lindsay and Helen Plepros here. But I'm going to remind people of things that the original French postmodernists did, and then speak to them in the language of the applied postmodernists. So the first thing is this postmodern knowledge principle. Now, we've already touched on this today, which is its radical skepticism about whether objective knowledge or truth is attainable, and also a commitment to cultural constructivism. So I'm just going to read it. Hold on. I'm going to read one second. Let me read this. So the knowledge principle. This denial of objective knowledge or truth and commitment to cultural constructivism and belief that whatever it is we call truth is nothing more than a construct of the culture calling it that has been largely retained with one important provision. Under applied postmodernist thought, identity and oppression based on identity are treated as known features of objective reality. That is, the conception of society as comprised of systems of power and privilege that construct knowledge is assumed to be objectively true and intrinsically tied to social constructions of identity. Now, I know that those words seemed complicated to understand, but what I'm really taking of this is that all they did is say that these identity groups are objectively true, and that the power between these different identity groups, right, the power struggle between them favors what the dominant group considers knowledge versus what the I guess you would say the unprivileged groups consider knowledge.
Right.
Right. Like they're literally devising even what you can know based on the identity group. Thoughts?
Okay, so the identity group objectively exists. You can't question that idea. But the identity group knowing how they exist, you can question that.
It's not just knowing how they exist. It's just that their
No, no.
concepts of knowledge might be different.
No. Them knowing how they exist. That identity group knowing how they exist.
Oh, no.
is
The identities,
objectively
the
true.
identities are real in objective reality. There's no questioning that.
But that's not
something.
true.
Well, no, yeah, but it is in applied postmodernism. That is a common theme that you see.
But that's not how they apply it. Because as soon as you tell them that's not how I experience my identity within this group, they say you're lying.
Yeah, because it goes against the objective truth that they said. It is how they apply it, right? Because they're saying that you're just wrong if you are supposedly claiming to be part of that identity group, but you oppose what the theorists say.
Okay.
It goes, well, no, it goes back to the Uncle Tom thing. I understand that what I just read, you're right. What you're pointing out is the contradiction. The contradiction is that there are people that are black that disagree with this way of looking at the world.
Yes.
Right? Even though technically that identity group of being black is objectively true. They've already come up with ways around that, which is that goes back to the false consciousness thing. Well, yes, your skin is black, but you're not politically black, right? You're too dumb to understand that you're being oppressed. Is really what they're saying.
Or you're too smart or too dumb to know that you're oppressed. It depends on how they're using it. If it's black or Asian or whatever group that they've decided isn't oppressed for their reasons.
All right. Any other comments on the knowledge principle? Anybody in the chat confused about the knowledge principle?
I mean, I am, but it's not anything you're going to be able to explain to me. It's the functional reality of its existence.
Indeed.
Yeah, well, no, like, if you find that there's a contradiction in this idea of knowledge, it's because almost everybody here kind of understands that, like, we believe in that there's some sort of objective reality, right? Or in that we can use rigorous tools and methods that we have to at least come up with some provisional truth about reality. Right? And I'm not talking about some sort of absolute objectivity that, right, like it's just universally true in some way that is axiomatic and dogmatic. I just mean provisionally true.
Okay.
I guess. Well, no,
I
like
thought you were explaining more to it. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess, like, if you're confused about what I'm saying, where, like, I'm not saying, like, some sort of, like, super objective, like, could never be questioned truth, because that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not disagreeing with the whole idea of being agnostic to an idea as how it was originally formulated, which is, there's some things that maybe can't be known or can't be known now, but maybe they could be known in the future, right? And I'm also not saying that just because the best information we have today points to one conclusion, I don't mean that's grounded in forever to be objective truth. I just mean we have models that are really good that at least me and you could agree that if we apply that model, we'd come to the same conclusion.
Yes. I can agree that.
The best way to say is, like, we could come up with these models to figure out, like, before we traveled the globe, to do some math and determine that the Earth seems to be a sphere shape, right? And we would all agree that, like, hey, we can all test this and it works. But maybe it's not really a sphere shape, because it's not. It's an obloid, right?
Slightly. It's spherical.
Yeah, like, it's mostly spherical, but it's not completely, right? So our original guess was wrong, technically. So there was no objective truth with our original math. But we did come up with something that was provisionally true. Something we could all agree on based on these standards, based on models, and we're using methods, at least, that come to objective conclusions. Right?
Yes.
So my lived experience of never leaving my 20 I don't know, 30 by 30 yard corridor of the planet in the plains of Kansas would say, well, no, my lived experience says this is flat, right? We would all just say that doesn't matter. That doesn't apply to this.
Well, it would, yeah. Are we talking about with applied, or are you talking about actual?
No, like I'm saying, like this is the difference between we come up with these objective models to determine the shape of the Earth, right? It can't be dismissed, right, by somebody saying, well, I only work on this 30 by 30 yard plane in Kansas that is completely flat. Right?
Yes.
Like that person's lived experience does not trump this objective model that we created, that if this person in Kansas actually applied themselves, would have to come to the same conclusion that we did.
Yes, I get what you're saying now. Sorry. I misunderstood. I apologize.
All right. Well, I think we covered that one. Let me move on to the next one. I don't know. I just find these principles fascinating. So
I don't understand how you come up with principles if you're saying that radical skepticism is the basis of what you're doing. How do you have principles if you're radically skeptical?
Well, and I will say this is written by somebody critiquing postmodernism. So maybe they wouldn't say this was a principle themselves, right? This is an outside look. The postmodern political principle, that's next. A belief that society is formed of systems of power and hierarchies which decide what can be known and how. This also has to be retained. This is central to the advocacy of identity politics, whose politically actionable imperative is to dismantle this system in the name of social justice.
Dismantle.
Right? Like, I hope the people watching are like hearing this and being like, sounds like shit I'm hearing from protesters. We have to disrupt and dismantle.
Yeah, so the next time they say burn it down, you better know what they fucking mean, dude.
Yeah, they want to upend liberal society as we know it and replace it with something else. Culliver, you missed everything.
Everything. All the things, all the stuffs, all the everything.
Yeah, I will say
we had a dance party, and the magical unicorn sang a pretty song, and then anime titties dance across the screen. It was fucking epic, dude. Sorry, I'm kidding.
Yeah, well, like, realistically, we only have about, I don't know, 10 to 20 more minutes of content to talk about on the stream. Maybe a little more. I'm willing to go for a full 2 hours. I don't think I'm going to open the stream up to people for this. However, it is on my channel. I do have no issue with if people that are in the stream want to come chat, like Sinrise, TK Mao. I know Full Metal Joker always has something to say. I have no problem with doing another stream that's just kind of a freeform chat shortly after this one. So those are the principles of postmodernism, but then you have the themes of postmodernism, which one of the biggest ones is blurring the boundaries, right? So this is what they have to write here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm amusing
I
myself.
don't even know what you were laughing about.
I'm still laughing at the whole concept. Okay, so we had principles, and apparently that wasn't enough, so now we have themes. So when you say theme, I'm like, oh, we're going to put on a new costume. Isn't my makeup just fabulous? So that's where my brain goes, because that's how
yeah. Like, once again, like I'm reading straight out of the book Cynical Theories right now. And the reason I'm doing it is because I think these are important, and we talked about these last stream, right? The two principles and four themes of postmodernism. And all I'm doing is reading how they kind of changed, right? To be a part of this applied postmodernism, which again, these principles and themes, the postmodernists themselves, they don't look at it that way, right? I'm pretty sure that this is how, just for the sake of understanding what's going on, that James and Helen categorized it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like,
think.
if you were to read all the work that they did, right, and all the work on the original postmodernist and all the work on the new critical theorist, this is what they came up with, which are things that, like, everything that I just read, I see all the fucking time when I'm reading about new nonsense that came out of critical social justice academia. Right? They're all there. They're all present. Like this idea of knowledge, that's a huge one. Right? And the political one is, I would say that was the one that probably hits closest to home for people, especially those that are dealing with like protest and riots in the streets right now.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. The one that's actually hitting the closest to home that I hear people bitch about the most is the attack on the nuclear family. Like, that's the one I really hear people get heated about. Like, really, really angry and fired up about is the attack on the nuclear family. That seems to be a really big. So there's some emotional connection part that there's a I don't know what to call it, an aspect that they're neglecting to acknowledge is fundamentally important. And it's really, really viscerally people are opposed to it.
Well, and I agree. And I part of the reason we do this stream is most of the people here are already opposed to it. I'm just trying to give people the information on, like,
I was
their
just
own
talking about
words
my
and their own
observations.
applications.
I was just throwing out the observation of what people are actually opposing. That's all.
All right. I'm lightning round again. I'm going to read about blurring the boundaries, right? This is one of the themes. It's most evident in post-colonial, which we haven't talked about, in queer theories, which you guys all know, that's kind of the gender study nonsense, which are all centered around ideas of fluidity, ambiguity, indefinability, and hybridity.
Oh, so when you say queer theory, you don't mean like just odd theories.
Yeah, I don't. It means something very specific. Right? It's the idea that you can break down everything in society that we think about sex and gender and sexuality and turn it into something completely different that is undefinable, ambiguous, and fluid. Right? Like that's literally what it does, right? This is blurring the boundaries is exactly what that's all about. Right? Like those boundaries exist, and we understand that like from a liberal perspective, I understand that there's people that don't fall nicely into the norms. But those norms exist, and we know that they're influenced by things other than just societal pressures.
Yes. Trying to deny that is destructive to our society. It's horribly destructive and distressful.
Well, yeah, and so we talked about the use of words and how the original postmodernists thought that words define knowledge, but yet language itself was a social construct. So this was really power knowledge, and it wasn't really a way to find truth, right? That language was just used to uphold the dominant power structure. So you could see why they would draw upon this, and why they're using things like new pronouns and things like that. And I'm actually getting way past what I was going to read, but I don't need to anymore. You can see how what they're doing is they're using Derrida's idea of how language works, and then turning it upside down, create their own version of language, and then trying to enforce that idea of language onto other people. Like, that was Jordan Peterson's main problem with the whole idea of these new genders and being required by law to use these new pronouns.
Well, okay. I think this is where the other concept we were talking about, charity, comes into place. Because everybody keeps talking about this idea abstractly of they keep taking the language and changing it. Well, if we don't let them change the language, this will no longer happen. So when they come up with the I'm non-binary, sure, blah, 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 just say, okay, chickie, that's fine, honey, and keep walking on. Because giving in to delusion furthers delusion.
Yeah, I just want to. I want to back
Am
up
I
a little
wrong,
bit.
Irate? Irate would be the one to know. He's the one that works. He's the one that did the work with psychology. And from what I understand and what I was always told, playing along with the delusion will actually create greater harm long term.
Oh my God.
Does it?
Oh my God. You have no idea. And that's what's so, it's like this whole, there was almost like this philosophical movement that just washed into the field where it was just like, well, let's just accept them like they are. And they've come to you for help.
Yeah.
You know, and
That
it's
seems
like
destructive and dangerous to me.
right, if person A wants to change, you know, you help them figure out why they want to change, if they really want to change, and you know, and then help them find a way to do that if that's the, you know, what they're really thinking and feeling, right? Because people get confused, you know, get overwhelmed with emotions and thoughts and shit, and of course, it's perfect. It's because it's a non-science. It's rife with just you know, all kinds of just poisonous intellect going into it.
And it's so easy for those people to adopt this way of thinking rather than addressing something that is an objective problem, and it doesn't help them, which is that's one of the things that I've said about trans issues for a long time, which is I'm no expert on it, but if a scientific paper comes out and it points out that look, we do all these hormone therapies and we do all these
and the suicide rate isn't changing,
and then like all these underlying problems still exist, the idea that you might have some sort of treatment to try to get people to be comfortable with the body they were born with, if even if they don't have one that works now, it's not like it's not worth exploring.
Well, all right, let me ask you this, Excel. All right, so you at the age of 14, or maybe at the age of 12, you decided that you wanted to be a girl and you cut your dick off, right?
That's child abuse to me, but
you're right. You know, nobody in the right would let a child do that.
Colliver asked the question. It's like, did I talk about them pushing this on kids? Not on this stream. We've certainly talked about it before. Once again, like the amount of stuff that involves critical theory and how it's permeating society right now, I thought it was going to be like a couple streams me and Atima had, and it's turned into what? 8, 9? I don't even know. I lost count. And each one, like, even though there's a lot of overlap, has covered different topics. Definitely, we're going to get to a topic that is dedicated to gender studies and queer theory. And when we get there, like, certainly Colliver, that stream will heavily talk about how they're trying to apply it to children. Personally,
it's very distressing.
Yeah, personally, when it comes to adults, I don't give a shit. I just don't care. But when it comes to children, like they don't know, and it's way too easy for an ideological driven parent to sway their child in a direction that they don't really want to go. So it's a real problem, and I don't want to get into it too on this stream, but I understand what you're talking about, and yeah, it's terrifying. That might be more terrifying than all the stuff we're hearing about, like critical race theory.
It is. If you're a parent and you have a child that's non-conforming in some fashion, this is a very scary thing. And I happen to have a house full of people that just naturally don't conform. I'm shocked. I'm sure you all just surprised if you've seen me at all in person. You're completely shocked that my kids are non-conformists. But yeah, I can tell you firsthand the type of indoctrination, especially because it's so prevalent on the West Coast. The type of indoctrination, it's pretty unnerving because I have a tomboy for a daughter. And she's so female, it's not funny. She's just, everything about her is incredibly feminine, but she's rough and she's tumble and she likes to work on cars and she prefers to dig ditches and do that kind of shit, but she's still a girl. And you would have no idea. You have no idea how many times she's had to have the conversation of, "No, I'm not trans. I'm just a fucking tomboy. Leave me alone."
Yeah,
Like,
and that's
stopped talking to people because of it.
For people that are really interested in that subject, just look up Deborah So. She writes about it all the time. She's just like, look, we have these ideas of what's masculine and feminine, but just because you're a woman that has a lot of masculine traits, it doesn't make you any less of a woman.
No, it just means you're a more durable one.
That's right.
Yeah, like, more durable, sure. Like that. I mean, that puts it in a positive light. It just means like you might be different than the norm, but just because you're not like you just like bell curve traits, right?
Yeah.
Just because you fall on one extreme, it doesn't make you not a woman.
Exactly.
It's really insulting, and it's kind of a frustration we've had a couple of times now.
All right. I'm going to go through real quick. So I wanted to get through these themes, but one of the other ones was the power of language, which we basically just talked about. The only thing that we limited it to was in relation to blurring the boundaries of how they're trying to change language for the way we think of sex. But the power of language is also what they're using to promote the idea that microaggressions are bad, right? Or that language can be violence. And like really, if these people got power, like,
but burning shit,
they would come. Like, you could imagine like Supreme Court rulings from people that buy into this, saying that like, well, free speech doesn't apply to things that are violent, and if certain speech is violent, then of course we can ban it. The cultural relativism, that one's pretty obvious. The idea that, well, all cultures are equal, they're just different. And if you're not a part of that culture, you can't speak to it, which is just nonsense, right? We have fairly objective standards of what's right and wrong that we have progressed upon in liberal societies. Cultural relativism really falls apart when you start telling these people, well, why are you fighting about this nonsense in America where this isn't really a big issue? Go take this up in Saudi Arabia. And they're just silent. Like, they don't want to deal with it because they're just like, well, that's a different culture and we don't want to colonize them.
This has nothing to do with colonization. That's another one of those buzzwords
yeah, I know.
we need to take away.
Yeah, I know. But that's what they would say, right? Like, going in there and enforcing our principles on places like Saudi Arabia would be a form of colonization. And we can't speak to another culture and try to go change it. The last
Why not?
Oh, well, we should. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. The last one, it's just because I really want to get to the activist scholarship part. We already talked about how the loss of the individual and the universal, what that really translates to in applied postmodern theory is something we already talked about, where you're not an individual so much as you are the sum of your intersected identity groups. Right? And all Uncle Toms need not apply for blackness.
How is that academic?
Well, it's not. Well, it's in academia. So it is, I guess, right? Like, that's the problem. It's in academia. And these are real ideas that are pervasive in academia.
Okay.
Yeah, this is where you asked the wrong question. Is you asked, how is this academic? The question is how did this shit get into academia? Which is literally what we've been explaining.
Yeah, I don't. Which is what I'm asking. Like, how is this? How did this get there? Because this one of these things is not like the other. Okay. It does not compute. Bing, ding, ding, ding.
Socialism, man.
Fuck, dude, it's so antithetical to being human. Jesus.
Yeah, this is what sucks about it. So, like, I know I spent more time than you two researching and reading about this. And I probably spent a little bit more time trying to put myself in the minds of the critical theorist, right?
Yes.
But it's still hard because when you see it at face value, like it just triggers you immediately. Anybody that grew up, like I would say, if you went to like I'm 36, right? I would say anybody under the age of 30 kind of grew up with this understanding of like why we have rigorous academic objective measures for things. I think people after that have probably been very well indoctrinated in this idea that there's other ways of knowing that are way less rigorous. This is why we've compared it many a times to a religion rather than an actual form of academic study.
Which I think is kind of, we're not doing ourselves any favors. They may treat it like a religion and they may act like cultists, but we are not doing ourselves any favors with conflating religion with this shit. Because religion usually has some sort of like spiritual or psychological component attached to it that justifies its existence in some fashion.
Or something.
This has no... What now?
Hold on. I think you're wrong, but I think you might agree with me why I think you're wrong. Religion, especially like it for most of the American tradition, didn't pretend to be something more than what it was, right? Most religions were fighting each other, even in the Christian tradition, for most of American history, right? It never tried to sell itself as something that was academic in the same way you would treat mathematics or physics, which is what is happening now.
Okay.
Did what I say make sense?
Yes, it makes sense, but it doesn't apply to what I'm using as an inference as to why it's not a religion. Because from a, I guess, cultural evolution or evolutionary psychology or psychological evolution standpoint or whatever, developed through time the necessity of religion for the human psyche. It usually has, like, humans create religions for a reason. There's usually a fear or a thing that they need or that they're looking for, that they create a higher power to help them achieve. That's the origin of religion. That's why it's such a psychological thing.
I'm not going that deep, Atima. I'm actually only going as deep as people that are very strict followers of certain religions. Not all, right? Not all of them apply. But most religions have things that they just assume to be true that they don't feel they need to prove, right?
Okay,
they don't have to explain. They don't have to give evidence to other people as to why they believe this, and they don't pretend that. Well, okay, some of them do, but I say for the most part, they don't pretend that this is something that everybody outside the religion should also believe too.
Okay. But the premise of having the religion, there's no looking to fix a problem with critical race theory. There's no looking to help people come together or to resolve fear or anything like that. Critical race theory doesn't have that. In fact,
well, no, I disagree. I think it does think it will solve the problem by upending liberal society and redistributing social shares. I think they honestly believe that will solve a problem. There is a very underpants gnome type way of thinking about it, which is step one, disrupt and dismantle the current system. Step two, and then step three, universal racial equality.
There's no spiritual aspect to it. There's no psychological impulse for unity. I don't even know what the word is I'm looking for. The psychological need for religion is lacking,
all right.
And that's the problem with
if I took out the word religion and just replaced it with dogmatic, would we be able to settle this?
Yes, because it's not a religion.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I only used religious like because a lot of people would consider dogmatism to be a religious thing. But I will admit it's not exclusively religious because I'm giving you an example of something that is dogmatic that is not religious.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to say is that it's just completely not. There's the religious aspect of this dogmatism.
Sinrise thinks we're both wrong, and I want you to hold on to that for about about 30 minutes until I start another stream and move over to, I'll probably be on the night Discord, and we'll just have some random talks.
Yeah, because I gotta finish eating, and it's getting late, and I need my.
Yep,
kids.
I'm gonna try to sway this off in 15 minutes because this actually goes right into the topic I wanted to cover. Is it's kind of shifted, especially in the university world, of what we used to expect of our teachers, right? Like academic standards, like the goal of teachers used to be to hide their beliefs. I actually remember in my political science class, a guy that was very good at steel manning arguments. And I didn't know that he was steel manning conservative arguments until the last day of class. When he came out saying he was a Democrat, and on the last day of class, he was an active Democrat in the state of Missouri, and I think he actually, after I was there, has taken office to some capacity. But that's where he said, like, this is where I lay it out, and here's my personal opinions, and that was the last day of class. And that was in a political science class. And that kind of way of teaching and thinking used to be universally praised. But now we have this new way of thinking that they're teaching teachers, which is this form of activist scholarship, where they need to teach kids how to be anti-racist, right? How to get them into this orthodoxy of critical theory that is permeating all of our academic institutions. And it used to just be in the colleges, and we've all seen, like, the Brett Weinstein debacle at Evergreen, right?
Yeah.
We know this. I'm pretty sure everybody in the chat is familiar with this. That's just one example of the result of allowing this kind of activist scholarship to go on. But yeah, like, all of a sudden they no longer have to try to hide their ideological beliefs and just show, here's all the facts on the matter, and you can come up to your own conclusions, right? They're actually swaying students to be activists. And what's even worse is that, and this is what we're seeing in fields that aren't necessarily, critical theory fields, but we're seeing it permeate even into STEM at this point.
Well, it's scary how it's getting into STEM. That's scary.
And part of the reason that's happening is because it's becoming such an orthodoxy that a lot of scholars that are working in, let's say, psychology, they don't realize that this bias that they've been taught to uphold is affecting the outcomes of their work.
Oh, are you sure about that? I mean, how can you teach people to deal with the mind if you're not teaching them how to do with their own? I mean, how does that work?
Oh my God!
Well, here's the best way.
Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm going to use an example that is. I'm going to use an example that's.
Hold on. What now?
If you knew how many people in the psych field did not go to therapy or and it had severe problems, I mean, oh my God! I'm just gonna leave it like that because that's one of the reasons I got out of the field. The people I worked with were sicker than they weren't. No, the people that I worked for were sicker than the ones I was working with, if you understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jesus.
I'll tell you something. Yeah. Sick motherfuckers.
Well, and in this context, I'm more talking about how somebody submits a paper that is perfectly sound on all of its information, but it comes to conclusions that do not align with critical theory. What's happening is, even in scientific journals, they're pulling or denying those papers because activists are upset by the conclusions, right? They're not actually using peer review in a way that looks at it, looks at the methods, says it's okay, and tries to test it themselves. They're just saying that, I don't care what methods you use to come to this conclusion. The
I don't like
conclusion
the
sucks,
conclusion.
so we're going to pull the paper. And you're seeing that happen a lot. And a lot of these, what I'm trying to say is a lot of these people are saying like, oh no, it's not because of critical theory or some sort of bias that we have. They're trying to play it off like it's not. And you
It's
can
more
either
than
you can
obvious
either
it is.
you could either A, call them a liar, or B, just say it's been so ingrained in them that they don't understand that it's a bias that they have. And you're gonna hate me for this, but the only example I can really think of is I can go back even to the early 90s where the idea of, and actually like it'd be better to go back to the 1800s, but like the idea that like, oh yeah, there's a god and it exists was just kind of something that was given to most of society, right? And if you did academic work that said such, it probably wouldn't have been too contested, right? And I know we're not talking about God here. Like, I'm not trying to make this a religion. Like, I draw the parallel to religion, but there's been a very big change, and I think you would probably, I think all of us on the stream probably grew up with that, right? In elementary school, even through junior high, it wasn't uncommon for kids to ask you what church you went to. My parents, who turns out they're not particularly religious, they sent me to church, right? It was just a thing we did, right? And we just held it as like a thing that was something we grew up around. And I think what you're seeing with especially newer scholars, you're seeing a similar thing with, it's just something they grew up around that's been kind of pushed into them since they, from the beginning. That these ideas from critical theory, all these axioms that they come up with that are completely fiat, right? Like they don't even pretend to have to prove them by any objective measure. It's just kind of ingrained into them. So I do think there's probably at least a decent percentage of scholars that are not in these fields that buy into it just because that's just what they've always been taught, what they've always known.
That's insane. Think about that. We have an entire generation of people that don't know what critical thinking is.
Yep.
And they're in charge of shit.
They don't know what critical thinking is, but they certainly know what critical theories are.
Can you imagine what would happen if a fucking EMP hit?
We lose a lot of fucking people, dude.
Think about that shit. Think about all the mayhem, people running crazy.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that is pervasive, and this is something that we've said from the get-go, and Atima, you're going to cheer at this one, is that critical theories don't explain anything.
They explain shit.
They don't explain. They don't even try to explain anything.
They just want to bitch.
All they do is complain about problems.
No, they just complain about other people having explanations. That's literally what they're doing. They're complaining about solutions. They're complaining that solutions exist.
Yeah, well, because of course they will.
Right, and then the EMP hits, right? It's like, well, how are they going to know how to sterilize water before drinking that?
They aren't.
I mean, just shit like that. You know what I'm saying?
They aren't.
I don't know, man.
I mean, they're too fucking stupid at this point.
I mean, it's going to balance their check. Oh, they don't have
one. Yeah, it's so easy to make fun of them, especially the people like in the streets right now. That I've talked about this plenty of times, and what you really have going on in this critical theory nonsense is you have your bishops, right? Your cardinals and your bishops, which would be like the Ibram Kendis, Kimberly Crenshaws, and Robin DiAngelo's of the world, right? They're the academics that are setting the groundwork for this school of thought. And then below it, you have your priest, right? Which would be like your elementary school teachers or just your basic bitch 101 philosophy teachers that are also peddling this. And then below that, like at the very bottom, you just have the the useful idiots and devout faithful, which are your people on the streets that are out there rioting in name of these ideas.
That's wholly terrifying to me.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much else you can say, man.
Like, oh,
Robin DeAngelo's real name is Taylor, in fact. That's fun. It is a fun fact.
That kind of makes me feel better because Robin is a personally significant name to me. So I'm glad that's not actually her name.
Well,
I feel better. Thank you, Ryan. That improved my day.
Well, anyway, you know what? I had to hurry up through the last of it because I really wanted to get the stream ended, and I know that you guys don't want to go for longer than 2 hours, and we're 4 minutes away from the 2 hour mark. So, you guys have any last words? Anything else to say?
I saw where they tried to burn down part of my neighborhood today. I was coming back from the grocery store, and I saw a long line of cypress bushes that had been caught on fire. They might be juniper because we live up north, but there was a long line of cypress bushes right against an apartment complex that was set alight. So, yeah, when they tell you that this is only happening in the mountains in the rural areas, don't believe them. I'm 3 miles outside of Portland's outskirts.
Get out.
I'm trying.
Anyway, Irate.
Unfortunately, most of our houses are kind of burning down right now. Anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Hello?
Final words.
Oh. Don't piss on an electric fence. Just recommendation.
Yeah, you'll instantly go to
sage
hell.
advice.
We've all seen Ren and Stimpy.
Sage advice. Sage advice.
Anyway, I'll help Irate out a little bit, which is if there happens to be anybody in the stream right now that is not subscribed to Irate Prostate, which is very unlikely, I just posted the link. We will be back on his channel next Saturday at 8 p.m. talking about the same subject. We will probably be getting into the more specific versions of applied postmodernism, which would be things like post-colonial theory, gender studies, and then we might tag on some more depending on how much time and content we think we can actually make out of a stream. Anyway,
Okay.
I will be waiting for another stream to go live here on this channel. I will be moving myself on Discord over to the Knights of the Coffee Table Discord, which I will, while Atima fills some background noise, get the link for.
Oh, I'm going to fill some background noise. I've got a lovely bunch of coconuts. There they are, standing in a row.
All right, that's enough. I got it done. And then
Boomerversity Campus Radio. I'm going to be throwing out a link tomorrow. The lightning bug is damned if he's not going to rock and roll.
Again,
Nice.
Ryan Sinrise, Full Metal Joker, I hope to see you joining the Discord. I'm going to end this stream, and I will be starting another